The funny thing is that I just realized recently these traditional martial arts, they actually are not traditional martial arts. They are modern martial arts. And because in modern martial arts, because I used to train Bujinkan Budo Taijutsu many years. Even in that martial arts, there's the concept called levels of violence. And it means that
we practice a lot with just like the pad training. It's very good, it builds up your conditioning, techniques and ability to kick, ability to punch. But oh boy, if you think that just from that you can do sparring or something, not a chance.
It's very hard to actually land a shot to someone who is expecting to get hit. Most of these modern martial arts, they lack the most essential essence of fighting and martial art. Like casual people, they would think that the bodybuilder type guy is the best fighter. Like the Bradley Martin, like he can dominate everyone because he's 260. But in reality,
some skinny guys, maybe you think, maybe that's good for marathon runners, but they can become like beasts in the cage. Like they can become super good fighters.
What I actually personally love about mixed martial arts is I would say it's the most equal sport in the world. And what I mean is that
so Nordine was with his student. They were like sparring in the cage. He was just taking him down at will, keeping him in the ground. Really was dominating the guy. And I was watching that, and without knowing who the guy even was, and I was like, we need that. We need to get dominated by this guy. You're not going to end up in a situation where you need to like actually physically protect yourself.
It's still a possibility. Even in the safest society on earth with the most surveillance, it's still a possibility, that some person goes crazy.
Like you're very punctured verbally and you're good at talking. That's also like physical power.
Exactly, because if you talk like this, like nobody's going to listen to you.
Yeah. The other day I was talking to Samuli. It was like after one of our MMA session when we had finished the training with Nordine Taleb. And we came to the parking lot and it was like we had just done like sparring and it felt pretty intense. And I was just like saying to Samuli that it would be really difficult to imagine my life without this. Like not just, talking about martial arts in general, but without this kind of like combat training, without sparring, without challenging myself in those kind of situations. So, and that's interesting. It's not only, that there is the personal, let's say personal gain that, I feel better, I feel more confident, maybe I feel more stronger, but the martial arts and especially the combat, sparring and putting yourself out there, testing yourself, it has like really greatly also influenced our training, like very directly. Like some of our training methods, even like warrior training exercises, it's directly the inspiration came from martial arts, from MMA, from like the formality was from Bas Rutten, and then for example mixed martial arts was just a huge inspiration to improve our conditioning and cardio, and even the Iron King, the grip training, and all of this is also inspired by, to an extent, by needing to have that sort of performance in the like fighting in mixed martial arts.
Yeah, the good thing about mixed martial arts is that it's such a complete like a physical test for a human being. Like it's so multifaceted and so multidimensional. Like you have to have almost every quality in terms of like physical qualities and also mental qualities. Because you cannot just fight like with endurance alone. You need also lots of strength, especially in grappling and wrestling. Yeah. And then you also need explosiveness in striking and all these different qualities. And the physicality is only one aspect, because you also have to have the mental discipline and the mental toughness and the ability to take risks. Yeah. And not only that, you also have to have like IQ, like fight IQ, because many of these fights are actually won because of strategy and intelligence, because at the highest level, like everyone is starting to be really athletic, really like skilled. So how you actually win at the highest level is through strategy and fight IQ. So even the intelligence part is part of the fight game.
Yeah, so physical, mental and intellectual,
yes.
all in one. But yeah, the mental part is huge. The development, for example, when like years ago we started to do like first time more sparring, and it's just so chaotic. You're not in control of anything, and you're afraid of all the punches. You're afraid of everything, and like the development even there mentally. It's not physically. You will become hardened, so you become a bit like used to, of course, the kicks, and you're just like, okay, it doesn't like if I get a bit bruised, it's gonna be fine, and so on, and it's not gonna like kill you. But it's also mental development that you just like start to realize that there wasn't anything to be afraid of in any case so much. Like of course you want to protect yourself, but this kind of overreaction and just being like all stressed out, and this also, you just become like more calm because of that, I think.
Yeah, like the developing the internal qualities is one of the best things that have happened through martial arts and mixed martial arts, because like especially like developing the self-esteem and self-confidence.
Yeah.
Because somehow, like I don't know why it happens, but it happens. Maybe it's like because of the primal nature of every human being, is that like the kind of like the physical violence and the physical intimidation and physicality is present in almost present in every human interaction between humans and people and groups and countries. So somehow when you develop this, somehow it raises your self-confidence and self-esteem a lot as well.
Yeah, and that's interesting because you said like, it's hard to say what it exactly is, because I was thinking at the exact same thing, why does it make you feel maybe good and confident, and, this kind of subconscious ability, subconsciously, you feel indifferent, even though like this, for example, society in Dubai, it's safe. Like I almost feel like safer than even in Finland to an extent. Like you're not going to end up into a fight or something like that. Like it's just, you feel incredibly safe here. No robbers, nothing. Like you're not going to end up in a situation where you need to like actually physically protect yourself.
But it's still a possibility. It's like even in the safest society on earth with the most surveillance, it's still a possibility that some person goes crazy and somebody has to do something about it.
That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, for sure. There's always that thing, like maybe you prefer, but
and it's also like a kind of artificial thing.
The safety and the control and
safety and the security and control. It's artificially built, in many ways.
Yeah,
so
but I still feel like it would be different. Like if you live in a country where like street fights were common, then maybe it had even more like if you go to like some maybe towards the east, like Dagestan or something, where people like everyone is doing like wrestling or something because they just know like they can get into fights and it's very easy.
Yeah, but you definitely feel the electricity.
Yeah, you feel that. But the point was that it is safe, but it doesn't matter. Like even though it is safe, it still gives that confidence boost, because like you said, it is there. There is an underlying thing, threat. Like I've heard this before, like from somewhere, like you said, that every situation has the potential for that in any case. Like any human interaction, especially between men and men, you have that physical, even though it would be very, what is the word, like improbable? So it's improbable. It's still present, and somehow it can even change the dynamic of the conversation. If maybe it's a negotiation, it's because you're going to be in a different posture, you're going to talk different, because it's subconsciously, it's going to guide you. If you think that, it's even if it's a slight chance, but if it would turn into physical altercation, and if you feel that you could be competent in that, there's something that affects you, I guess.
And in all normal sides of life, this physicality is present, because these subconscious triggers, they still exist. So even in business or debates or any like argument between two people, there's always this subconscious triggers where somebody is like increasing the voice of their voice or like taking like a more like aggressive posture. Like even if you have no intention to do anything, it's still present and it still has a massive effect, because in debates you can dominate the other person if you are just more articulate and more physically dominant as well. Like, and a lot of people do this, and the same way even in business you can do the same. Like if you are like a very like a physically present person who has like a very strong like everything, then he can kind of dictate what's happening. And in politics this is true as well.
But what do you think, I mean, let's say that most politicians, it's difficult to say how capable they would be in actual like fighting by themselves, but they can be very verbally good.
Yeah,
and
it's one. It's one important aspect as well.
Yeah.
Like this fighting is not all of it. Like it's one aspect. Like we have spoken, like functional fitness is just being functional and healthy, and it's also increase the confidence and your functional ability. It's also important.
Yeah.
But fighting is very important aspect as well.
You could say that to an extent, like a really if you're very punctured verbally and you're good at talking, that's also like physical power, because it's loud physical voices.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you talk like this, like nobody's going to listen to you.
yeah.
So it comes from physicality as well. Like a voice it's an aspect of nature.
Yeah, and like the officials, like military police, they use voice, like if someone is like with a gun, like put it down, like they use loud voice because it also works, like can scare some people. So, but yeah, maybe that's a bit like derailing from what we were talking about, but still.
Yeah, but we have been training mixed martial arts a lot now.
Yeah.
And what I actually personally love about mixed martial arts is, like Nordine Taleb has said, it's like the most honest sport. And I would say it's the most equal sport in the world. Equal, like equality. And what I mean is that, of course, the size and weight matters, but in the sport, there's weight classes. And in every weight class, you have seen different body types and different personality types and different athletic types to be a champion. For example, John Jones, he's like very tall and lanky guy, and he is the one of the most dominant champions ever. But then after him, it was the Daniel Cormier, who was very like a shorter guy in the weight class and a bit chubby. And same way like Fedor Emelianenko was kind of fat a lot of his career as well, super athletic and super strong and explosive, but he was not the most athletic, like a fitness guy type. Yeah. Whereas like Tyron Woodley looked like a bodybuilder. Yeah. And then we have different types of, like we have spoken a lot about that. Different people have different muscle fiber types and different like athletic types. Like some people are more explosive and some people are more endurance focused. So we have seen champions like Tyron Woodley was very explosive and like this. But then some other guys, let's say maybe Khabib Nurmagomedov, he's not very explosive, but he's very strong and he has like amazing endurance and wrestling ability. And then some other fighters are more strikers, and GSP was more like intelligent fighter. So there's like all these different body types and personality types and even like intelligence levels who have become champions in UFC. So that way it's the most equal sport, because if you look at running or many other sports, it's only for the very selected individuals who have the most optimal muscle fiber type, the most optimal body type, and the most optimal everything. It's like many other sports, they select only the most optimal individuals for the one given sport. Whereas mixed martial arts is like everyone is welcome and everyone can become a champion if you are just good enough.
Yeah, it's true. Like you would think like some skinny guys, maybe you would think they're not good for almost any. Maybe that's just good for marathon runners, but they can become like beast in the case. Like they can become super good fighters. And one just other thing that I wanted to add to your list is that these differences are like, for example, what we talk about this one time. You have these talents that are like physically talented, like you have this kinesthetic skill set, like from even as a child. But even there, if you can be a bit like an awkward mover. Like we can talk about, for example, I think that for me, Israel Adesanya or like MVP, or for example, these are very good examples of super like talented kinesthetic guys, because their movements are so beautiful. They're very fluid. They can do like spinning attacks. They're like just unbelievably looking movement and understanding properly of the kinetic changes, all this. But then you have guys like the Dricus du Plessis.
Or Nate Diaz.
Nate Diaz is like, he's fluid but awkward. Yeah,
he's awkward and he's not super athletic either.
I don't remember who was the other awkward guy, but for example, Dricus, like when I look at him, it looks like, even like Taleb said, like there's certain like stiffness and it's like it just doesn't look exactly the most fluid or most natural, but he's very good. He became a champion, and even Taleb said, one of his why he became was because he was just so like consistent with his training. He was like relentless trainer. So he owned his own style. Like you don't need to be that kind of super high level talent. You can still become and go on to the highest level, even like comparing these like natural, more like athletic types and more like awkward people who are moving in ways where you think like, well, that's not good or something. Like you can't judge based on that. Like you can only see how good they are when they really go into that fight. So that was just for me like interesting, because there are sometimes these fighters who just don't look extremely maybe good on technique wise or look just weird. Even Jiri is like pretty awkward in his fighting approach.
Yeah, but he's very fluid and
he
fast,
has talent. Yeah,
fast as well.
That's true. But he combines like the natural athletic ability maybe together with awkward style.
But who is the bantamweight champion? The O'Malley.
Bantamweight.
O'Malley. O'Malley.
Sean O'Malley.
Yeah, Sean O'Malley. He's like super skinny as well. Like
he
has no muscle at all.
Yep.
And he's the champion.
Yeah, that's
and very hard striker.
That's a joke, some of these memes, they show like even Justin Gaethje, like he has normal clothes on and you don't even know that this guy's a fighter, like they have the glasses, and then they compare that to like a bodybuilder, like, you wouldn't believe that the guy on the left beats the guy on the right or something like that. But this, it's very admirable, because it really isn't about that, about that external like aesthetics and looks, although these fighters, I think most of them look really still incredible. They all look like they look like they have reached their own potential. That's the point here. But it measures really the performance and all the mental aspect, the intelligence. So yeah,
and that's the thing, because every individual has different potential for everything. So some people just don't have the same potential for muscle mass either. So and in UFC you can see all these different body types and different like levels of muscle mass on different fighters, and that's like a very realistic picture of different people. Like some people, they just don't become as bulky as other people.
Yeah, and that actually I think is great even for your own confidence, because you get a realistic idea of what the human body can look like to an extent. Like, and you know that you don't need to look like the most hulkish person to be really competent. I think it's great just for that, because even I changed, first I was just looking at all the Instagram bodybuilders and even like Golden Era bodybuilders who were just massive, and it kind of distorts your view. But the more I was like watching UFC and MMA, the more you start to like see like this is an actual like physique of a person. And of course, it's not like you're gonna look like exactly like any of them, but you start to appreciate also your own body through that.
Yeah, actually, most like normal people, like casual people, they would think that the bodybuilder type guy is the best fighter. Like he's the strongest. It's like the Bradley Martin, like 260. Like he can dominate everyone because he's 260 and 6'2" or something like this.
Yeah.
So, but in reality, like skill is above everything and mentality is above physicality. So the physicality is like, it's the third on the list. It's not even the most important.
Yeah, just came to my mind. I don't know if you saw it on Instagram, but the strongman, the Eddie Hall, who we talk about sometimes here in podcast, he just had like a fight against two people.
Yeah, some midgets.
Yeah, they weren't even midgets. They were like just normal sized persons, but still like I think they were like 1/4 of his weight. But there, I just started to think about the size matter thing. But he's not only size; he is like strongman, so he has some functionality, and he's been training MMA and boxing now for a long time. But like that looked horrible. He just smashed those guys like some Hulk. But I have no idea what is the skill level of his opponents anyway. So it's always difficult when you see something on the internet to make really judgments about anything. It's just not very reliable, and I think people make too many judgments based on this different Instagram post and whatever. Like just immediately make like this make up your mind about things, what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, but the size difference really matters. Like people think it doesn't, but of course, if somebody's really skilled in martial arts and MMA, he can beat a very big guy who doesn't have experience. But if the skill level is even remotely similar, then the big guy it's so easy for him to dominate the smaller guy.
Sure, yeah.
Like even we spar almost every week with Nordine Taleb. He's taller and bigger than us, and it's because he has more reach and he has more. He's just a bigger guy, so it's a lot harder to even like land shots and do anything.
Yeah, I started to think, that of course it's kind of good, or I hope that some if other opponents then come and they're more like similar size, it will feel easier, and maybe it will to the extent. But I think that it's part of the fun that he is a bit bigger and he can, like he can sort of, or it's more difficult and he's like really hard and it's tough because I don't know if I even ever talk about the time that we actually met him. Maybe I mentioned it somewhere, but I'm not sure because we had this. You've maybe seen us with the striking coach Stas, where we're doing the pad training, and there was this gym where we had like one session with the pad training, and I remember just because I didn't recognize, by the way, that he was like Nordine Taleb. I was just like he was with so Nordine was with his one of his student, and they were like sparring in the cage, and he was just. It was like, let's say, gentle domination. He wasn't like, smashing the guy or anything like this, but they were wrestling and, Nordine was just taking him down at will, keeping him in the ground and, kind of like playing and just really was dominating the guy. And I was watching that and without knowing who the guy even was or something, and I was like, we need that. Like, we need to get dominated by this guy. It was like instantly I felt that because like we need this experience of that level and someone who can really like pressure us and push us really to the new level and even like the vibe when I saw his face, like I could just see like there's something in there, and I think you recognize that he was a UFC fighter. Then after we went to talk to him.
Yeah, but it's because the stars he mentioned. He's
mentioned. Yeah,
he's UFC. But I also knew him.
Yeah, but at least you knew the name, right?
I've seen him fight. Yeah,
before. But it was just like even though like it wasn't clear immediately, it was like this guy has something, and we need to have that. And the thing like about having someone who is on such high level, it's really invaluable. Just
and the same way, like 1 year ago, we even filmed the video where we sparred with the Don Dol. Yeah, he's the Thai coach and Thai father here, who has had like under 400 fights and like hundreds of professional fights and then amateur fights and like this. And we sparred with him and he was just playing with us, and he's like a lot shorter and weighs a lot less. So we couldn't do anything. He was just playing with us and just dominating with technique and skill. And now just recently we started training with him as well. So we also want to get the same ability and the same calmness and confidence and composure as he has.
Yeah, it reminded me of the story that when I had the podcast with Nordine, and he explained almost like close to identically the way that when I don't remember if it was GSP who brought the Muay Thai coaches into the Sahabi's gym, but I don't want the backstory anyway. The Muay Thai, some couple of Muay Thai guys came to the gym where Taleb was training, and he was
training in Tiger Muay Thai in Thailand.
No, but before that, that's from where he get the inspiration. So they came to his gym, I think in Canada, and Taleb was explaining that he couldn't do nothing, like go back to sucking his thumb because these Muay Thai fighters were so good. And I felt like when he was explaining that, I was like, yeah, that's pretty much what we experienced as well in this gym. And there's something about Muay Thai, it has to be to an extent, just that most of them have hundreds of fight. Like
it's the experience of actual fighting, like just competition, like bam bam bam, and then also sparring almost all the time. Yep. And they spar super light, so you are not actually damaging the other person or yourself, but still it's absolutely vital to spar as much as possible, actually.
Yeah,
and you don't have to spar hard or even like with damage. Just spar like with some actual intention and proper technique and realistic scenario.
Yeah, and I feel like most of the Thai fighters also start really young. Like I don't know how young, but
yeah, like 7 years old,
yeah, like
or 5.
they start as kids, so that also affects it. It's give a bit of an edge, but regardless of that, there's that wake up. Of course, because we went to that Muay Thai gym multiple times to just spar with him and also this other fighter there. And back then we already think, we probably need to or should get some personal teaching from this guy as well. But it took some time because we were also doing other type of training, and then we started MMA, and now like quite recently we were like, okay, now it's time, like let's contact this guy and get some teachings from him. And even the first lesson I think was super interesting because there were certain things that I had not actually learned even when we were in Bangkok in this Muay Thai camp, and it was really good camp, but still there was a lot of stuff that he was teaching that was quite new about like shifting your weight into different positions and just like how to really place your weight in these kicks and these punches and the movement. But they were quite specific and unique advice for the Muay Thai specifically. But I think it's all something that you learn and then you can apply and put it into your own style.
Yeah, and like that's very important is that you find the best teacher possible because you will get only as good and better than the teacher you have. Because we used to train mixed martial arts many years and the progress was not any good actually. Or it was like amateur level, but only after we started training with Taleb, like the skill started to like go up and up and up and up, like faster than ever before. Like in 1 year, more progress than in the last 3 years. Like easily, maybe 2 times more. And the same way we did like the Muay Thai camp in Thailand, and it was good, but it still lacked the super high level. And now when we are learning from Don, it's like every session we are just learning like insane like a level.
Yeah, and it's a lot of like, to be honest, like brain work as well, because it's it is kind of like he said, forget your own style, forget what you've been doing like before, like this. and it's funny because in Muay Thai, they don't move that much, like they're quite in place and they're very like calculated their movements. And he said that before when we were sparring with him, he was always like laughing, and I thought it was fun that he was laughing because it kind of relaxes the atmosphere a bit. But he was laughing apparently because we were always like moving so much in the sparring and something, and now just like learning again, like to keep your composure, to stay more in place and make more maybe calculated movements here and there. That's it. Now it's not like very, I say, automatic. It takes more like thinking. So I'm just like waiting when all of this goes on a more like a automatic level, and it's just there in the body and using it more fluently later. But that's this process. It's just learning so much. But
even Muay Thai is it's like one side of fighting, and it's even one side of striking as well because it's very stationary.
Yeah.
So actually, boxing is very like. In boxing, a lot of fighters move a lot, and in mixed martial arts even more. And in karate, they move like crazy.
That's a good point.
But still, it's important to actually learn these different styles because even in the Miyamoto Musashi's Book of Five Rings, there's one entire area of the book is about the other styles and other strategies of war. Because you cannot actually you cannot even be a good fighter if you don't know the enemy. Like it's the old Sun Tzu proverbs that know the enemy and the victory will be easy. If you not know it, he said like know the enemy and know yourself and the victory will be easy. And now after we have been training like Muay Thai at the high level, like now I can see what the Muay Thai fighters are doing. Like now I can read them much better than before.
Oh yeah.
So now it's like 10 times easier to actually beat a Muay Thai fighter, even if I don't use Muay Thai myself. So that's why it's super important to know almost all of these big styles, and especially the style of your enemy or opponent.
Yeah, and also like going for example, what I was explaining, like because now you take away the style where you were the strongest, and you go fully into this new style. It's that also requires a bit of humility because the new style you're not as good in it as you were in your old previous style.
Yes.
So that also there's that kind of learning process and humility to actually really go into something and don't like put your own stuff. It doesn't mean that you will never, you know, then create your own style. That wasn't, you know, like I explained, that the idea is that you take, you know, it's a Bruce Lee philosophy. I think it's very timeless philosophy. You know, you take what's useful, discard what is not, and that is, I think, the attitude that you gotta take into these different areas that you're learning. Always like, you know, have that sort of humility to be a student and to learn and like and be worse. I would say, yeah, just that's what the humility pretty much is about. You have the willingness to for a moment, for temporarily, to be at a lower level.
Yeah, it's the white belt mentality, and just being willing to be like a beginner again, because many of these, especially traditional martial artists, they become like, yeah, my style is the best, my martial art is the best. Like it's like doesn't even matter what they say actually, because that's even like if you even say something like that, it means like you don't even understand martial arts very well.
Yeah, if you say like that.
Yeah, like my style is the best.
And one thing, you know, that is very interesting about, you know, traditional martial arts, and I'm not talking about all traditional martial arts, you know, there are good schools, bad schools, but I think like the general in a lot of these traditional martial arts schools, for example, the masters, they don't really like test themselves with the students. Like they don't properly spar. They don't do like full free sparring with these guys.
And they don't even, and not outside, and definitely not outside the school.
Yeah, definitely
because
not
if you're
outside.
actually, if you're a good martial artist, you can spar at any level. You can spar light, you can spar medium, and you can spar like it's a actual fight.
Yeah.
Because I asked Nordine Taleb, like, what's the difference between hard sparring and actual fighting? And he says that there is no difference.
Oh, he said that?
Yeah. Of course, there's different in like restraint and but it's as realistic as actual fighting. But you are just not trying to kill the other person, and you are not like if he's a little bit wobbly, you are not gonna finish him.
Oh yeah.
But otherwise, it's like actual fighting. And if you like, even in, because I used to train Bujinkan Budo Taijutsu many years when I was a teenager, like 4 years. Even in that martial arts, there's the concept called levels of violence. And it means that if you face like some newbie on the street, you don't kill him if you run into a fight.
Oh yeah.
Like you used only the necessary level of violence in every scenario. And that means you are actually a good martial artist because you can control the level of violence against the person. You can.
Yeah,
and of course, there's different schools of thought, but that was that school of thought, and I think that's actually the accurate, because if you are a seasoned fighter or martial artist, you can read the other person quite well and his level of confidence and everything else. But of course, there's the risk of knives and guns and other weapons, so you have to be careful. But still, if you are like having some small fight with some drunk guy on the street, of course you are not gonna kill him.
Yeah, and
even if you
like take an eye out or some like stupid stuff. But yeah, I remember, you know, this something that Jiang Yu Shan said, for example, was that if you can poke him in the eye, you can also jab him in the face. Like that's the thing. Some of these martial artists also, if they have the excuse like where the techniques are too dangerous, but it's exactly what you said. It's the levels of violence. Like you should be able to control. You don't have to use your lethal techniques. Like if you can, you know, grab someone's like throat or whatever, like dangerous techniques, you can also then do techniques that are not so dangerous and, you know, control the situation that way. You don't need to go like all chaotic like that. But it was just so striking for me, the contrast, like especially compared to Nordine Taleb, because like this guy he is a master of martial arts in a sense. Although you know, in this culture we don't like talk to him like, oh, master or something like this way, but he is a master in his domain in the mixed martial arts and
Muay Thai and striking as well.
Muay Thai, in multiple, but that's the mixed martial arts, so you have multiple martial arts together in it, the wrestling, Muay Thai, boxing, whatever, and even jiu-jitsu. And he like it's not even a thing. It's like a basic thing to spar. The very first class we had was like, let's spar so he can see our level and test us. Like it's the most basic stuff ever to do some sparring and to do it in a way where he controls it. like you know that he's better, but he doesn't have to always show it like directly. Like he can control his power level or his skill level and how much he's pushing us. So because he also has to keep in mind like how not to hurt us or how not to hurt himself when he's sparring with us. But the point is, sparring is so normal, and he has sparred, of course, multiple students, even like professional fighter students, and then he has also done the actual like fighting in the cage. So I think that's the huge difference, just testing it out in all these different areas.
Yeah, the thing about the traditional martial arts is that I would say 95% of the schools are no good because they lack the realism, they lack the sparring, they lack conditioning, they lack almost everything. They only have the very traditional techniques, but there's no realism in the techniques actually. Because I learned so many techniques in Bujing Budo Taiju, but there was no like little bit like a light competition or sparring. I never learned to actually apply them in the real world. Because it was always like this, like the uke, it means the other person, he attacks and then I do the technique. It was like all meditated.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of forms.
Scenario.
Yeah, scenarios. And of course drilling works, but it has to be as realistic as possible. And you also have to apply the techniques in like a free format, whereas the other person can defend as much as he wants.
Yeah.
And that's what we have been saying is that like in many traditional martial arts, the people have like very beautiful technique and like the perfect text room technique, but the technique is not combat ready unless you have tested it like thousands and thousands of times in free combat, like sparring. Yeah. And what I mean is that you have to apply the technique in like dozens of different scenarios and free scenarios as well. And you have to learn also how to set up the technique. Like the technique in a vacuum and alone, it means absolutely nothing because you cannot, it's very hard to actually land a shot to someone who is expecting to get hit.
Yeah.
So it's like almost impossible. And how you actually land the shot is through mind games and through setups and feints.
Yeah.
And different applications. And you only learn this by when in the real practice, when the other person is trying to avoid the shot, but then you trick him somehow and you land him like a clear.
Yeah, or just have the timing is so perfect and good, like.
Yeah, exactly. Like
and
you only develop the distance and timing through in free format sparring as well.
Yep. Yeah, well, so this is the thing, like, because we practiced a lot with just like the pad training, and it's good, it builds up your conditioning and you are developing like techniques and just ability to kick, ability to punch. But oh boy, if you think that just from that you can do sparring or something, it's no chance, not a chance. So it's important, it's useful, and fighters do that, but
yeah, like I would say like fighting is a different skill.
Yeah, different skill. Entirely. And it was
like, what I mean is that you can be very good at fighting, like amazing at fighting, and have bad technique, bad skill and everything.
Yes, you
but
can.
Then but what it means is that you have very good distance control, very good timing, very good rhythm, very good mental toughness and this ability to take shots and just lots of power and athleticism. Like this is already fighting. Like skill and technique is only one aspect, and alone it doesn't mean you actually know how to fight.
Yeah, I mean you have these guys there who are like doing this kind of like trick kicks and like they're throwing like flips and kicking from there, like moves that are like from a video game, like this crazy tornado 360 spins and kicking and fast and doing flips and kicks. And you would think, that if it was about the skill, like these guys would be kind of the best fighters. But that's also just a different form of skill. It's almost partially just like tricking. That it's a form of tricking, And of course that can help and it can, transfer to an extent. But yeah, the the fighting actually is about a whole new set of skills, like you mentioned. And I think this became also very evident if you look at this, for example, the Dondol that we talk about, our Muay Thai coach now, like almost everything comes with some kind of a feint. There's like a trick. There's a kind of like a trick there. Some like you think he's gonna kick and there's a punch. You think the punch is gonna go there, but it's go there. He watches to your feet, but it comes up. Like there's always constant this kind of mind game and feinting and what is maybe the word? Is it feinting or
setups?
Setups is maybe better. Like constantly this setup. So that's the skill. That's the skill, and also staying just calm and reading the other guy's movements. Like can see immediately. It's a huge thing that we are like more. I think, like as you mentioned, Nordine Taleb took our skills to the next level. I think partially because he is slowly like transferring this reading ability to us. Because before that, it was like, we had some skill, but it was like brawling. It was a lot of just brawling and reacting. Now it's constantly going more and more to that actual fighting skill thing that you explained. So you start to see it more broader perspective of the actual fighting. And then there's another level that you explained, like the strategy level, which I'm still like, I don't know.
Yeah, we are still not even at that level.
Now it's just like the actual skills, fighting skills, developing that.
And learning how to fight. But still, like the traditional martial arts, the thing is that they have, like the techniques, of course, they work and they're very useful. And most of these techniques and innovation in mixed martial arts, it actually comes from traditional martial arts.
Yeah.
But the traditional martial art techniques are like they work and they're super effective. But the problem is that the actual traditional martial artists, they lack the proper training methodology and the proper way to actually train the techniques in a realistic way.
But you used to have it, right? At some point, I think it was more.
Yeah, actually, the funny thing is that I just realized recently that these traditional martial arts, they actually are not traditional martial arts. They are modern martial arts. And because in modern martial arts, you lack the traditional aspect, which is fighting.
Right. In modern martial arts, you lack the traditional. Yeah, because fighting is traditional aspect. The sparring is traditional.
It's the most traditional. It's like the caveman aspect. It's like the most ancient form of martial arts. Yeah. And most of these modern martial arts, they lack the most essential essence of fighting and martial arts, which is the free format sparring fighting.
Yeah, it is like this.
So that's in that way, like all these, even like Aikido and all these traditional martial arts, they are modern martial arts. They are not traditional.
At least they're in their form that they are doing it now. Like maybe there is the Aikido, the form somewhere, but it's not practiced. The traditional form.
It was originally it was the Aikijutsu.
Oh yeah.
And jutsu mean like the art of like a war art or war skill or something like this. So and in the early 1900s there was like the big revolution in Japan, and for a while all these real martial arts were forbidden. And then they kind of like revamped and transformed these old martial arts into modern martial arts, and that's where the Do comes from. Do, like judo and aikido, the Do means like way.
Oh, so that's interesting.
Yeah. So all this, and even karate, it's not karate do, but even karate is like a modern version of the original thing.
Taekwondo.
Taekwondo. Yeah. Like in all these modern martial arts, it has been modernized and made like a less practical and less traditional actually.
So it went from war skill to way.
Yes.
Or something like that. Because I thought that was mostly like in China or something, but even in Japan the same.
Like even judo used to be jujutsu.
Oh, damn.
And then it's judo. But judo is more practical because it has the competition and sparring aspect.
So do you know like what was the kind of the I don't know why it happened? Was it just the government?
It was the government, and in China it happened a bit different time, but it was pretty much the same. Like for a while, all these like brutal and barbaric martial arts were like forbidden, and
So they considered that to be a threat. I
yeah, a
suppose
threat.
that was
Yes, yeah, and also
idea.
like because people think like now we're above this primitive nonsense. So that was one of the big reasons as well.
So it was thought that that's actually like some animalistic, like brutal.
Yeah, like it has
remnant of the past.
Yeah,
like.
it has no part in the modern culture.
yeah.
But it was, I think, a big part of it was like the governments were afraid of these people because they were like kind of, especially in China, because it had like the Cultural Revolution and during the Cultural Revolution, like the Mao Zedong, he banned like almost all martial arts and only Tai Chi and Wushu were allowed because they were like dance and they were more beautiful. They were not barbaric.
Yeah, but they are precise like that. It's like martial arts tricking. It's like a beautiful martial arts themed circus movement.
Yeah, it's like a lot of modern, like traditional martial arts, which are modern martial arts. They are like cosplay with traditional techniques.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great way to put it. Yeah, and it's not like I don't say it in a derogatory. What is the derogatory meaning? Because they are beautiful movements and they are nice forms and
they work. And many of the original
form.
idea and the technique is very high level martial art. But it's just, but nobody can apply it because they lack the essence and the original stuff. That's
the thing, yeah. But I started thinking, even this or some, I guess, in nowadays, maybe partially because of MMA and all this kickboxing, Muay Thai, and that even some of the traditional martial arts are kind of noticing that they need to start to like add this sparring element. So some schools are now like involving.
Yeah, and actually, I've seen some very good like traditional schools. For example, in New York, there was one like Jeet Kune Do school where they spar like crazy, like 2 hours straight for many times, maybe per week. And then I've seen some good Wing Chun schools in St. Petersburg, Russia. There's one very school, and of course, Jiang Yu Shan has the good monkey school in Taiwan. And so, but they're very hard to find. Like most of these schools, like they are not good at all.
Yeah, but that's kind of a cool thing, if you're interested in the traditional martial arts and you want to recognize like is the school good, then you can kind of easily see like do they do any kind of like sparring, do they do any kind of practice to actually make you combat ready other than just like pre-rehearsed drills. So you can kind of tell if there's a gym where maybe you should be or maybe you should stay at. But there's also I guess the other extreme where some like I just saw like in some gyms where they like immediately spar hard and they try to like knock each other really out or knock each like kind of like take advantage of the beginners. That's also not a healthy thing.
Yeah. You have to be intelligent about it, and it's like the other extreme is where it's like a barbaric fight gym.
Yeah.
What I like about the Muay Thai way of training is that it's very like soft.
Yeah.
So you are not actually hurting the.
I love it also because of that. although the sparring classes, I did hurt myself a couple of times. But
yeah, me too. And of course it happens, but it's not like a regular thing.
Yeah, and if they see like an opening, they're not gonna like try to really knock you out. But it was like accidents and just punches that landed bad, kind of. Yeah, I'd say like not on purpose. The purpose was not to cause the damage that they caused, like the liver shot that caused the ribs to be like sore for a month or something like this. But yeah, it's very important and especially even with Nordine Taleb, like the fact that I can kind of trust, because there are many occasions where I can see that he's throwing the kick, and then I can see like the kick is here, but he didn't like push it through. But if he would do that, it would be impossible to like even keep with the training, because you'd be all the time like damaged
and all the time scared.
So
you wouldn't even develop the skills and the composure to do anything, because you would be all the time running away and defending and guarding.
And especially with these Muay Thai guys, they have amazing skill to like loosen up the tension with their voices, with laughing and doing these tricks. But it also like that ability tells just how good they are, because they can really like honestly they can just have fun and play around and make it that into a serious working practice at the same time. So that's also an interesting thing. I think if you're on a high enough skill level, you can really like just it's have fun. And even I have fun. Like when we are sparring with people like Nordine or the Dondol, you're having fun. And even getting impacts is fun. Like getting a bit of like rough. Like it's
because people forget that fighting is rough. It's very risky and very tough sport.
Yeah.
And tough way to like live your life as well. Like real martial arts, you are gonna get busted a bit.
Oh yeah.
And a lot sometimes. And you will get some like impact injuries, but if you're smart, you will avoid the brain damage and like a lost teeth pretty much. But
yeah. And when the impacts are, still, they're impacts, but they're not impacts that actually like break you. They just like really build you up, and that's like you're just gonna feel so much harder and more resilient in your body. And we started this with talking about this kind of maybe the primal like subconscious reasons, but it's even deeper maybe than that. I don't know. Maybe we sometimes talk like even animals wrestle themselves like bears or even like big cats, like it looks like kind of the wrestling, even like gorillas, and it releases some like endorphins and something that I haven't just experienced from almost anything else. There's something there, and the animalistic, like we did after one of the wrestling classes, I felt like, I think I even said to Nordine that like nothing makes you feel like this so primal and like a beast, like this furious beast, and doing wrestling. And it's not about that you even are winning or dominating anything. It's the scramble. It's just the aspect of scrambling and wrestling, just like rolling on the ground and trying to throw some guy and squeezing. And there's something so enjoyable about all of that.
And I think that's where we finish.
All right.
Go train hard.